memorial drinks trolley rumbles past as it does every time, as broadcasting tradition dictates. Sue?
Sue?
I was thinking of the news.
Yes.
Susie from the pub has just selected what from the trolley?
I've selected a pale ale from a brewery called Daya called Steady Rollin' Man.
Let me guess, they're near Bristol.
They're not actually.
Yeah.
Shows what I know.
See you.
But it's just a very good pub and a very good beer.
It's a very good beer, yeah. Recommend if you spot it, you should try it because it's very tasty.
Tonight's tale comes from Sindy. Thanks, Sindy. I appeal today to the Confessional Collective to forgive my actions. My story goes back to 1964. When I was 13 years old, my sister was 15.
Wow.
We lived in the north of Glasgow. My school was in the south. In fact, I went to the same school as Ken Bruce.
Oh.
You may know him. I hear he's going somewhere on the 3rd of April.
3rd of April.
I actually went to St Custard's girls' school, whereas Ken went to St Custard's boys' school.
Yeah.
However, I digress. I just mentioned it because it's got Ken in it.
Yes.
That's how you get selected. Ken Bruce confessions. There's an interesting thought. Anyway, my sister is deaf, says Sindy, so she went to Porridge Court School for the Deaf. So we both had to take a bus into town and then have a bit of a walk before we each took another different bus to our respective schools. Occasionally, timetables permitting, we would meet at Cathedral Street in town on the way back from school, then get the next bus together for the last leg of the journey. Being back in the 60s, there wasn't much fun around. There were no mobile phones, no tracking systems which could inform us of the impending arrival of our bus. Having spent many days in the dreary Glasgow cold waiting at a bus stop, we devised a pastime. Actually, I think it was my sister's idea, to be honest, passing the buck already. We bought a reel of what was called invisible thread. I don't know if it exists today, but back then it was a thin, clear, plastic thread. Now, can I just say at this point that I suppose there's a PG element to this because you shouldn't try any of the following.
Understood.
Don't copy it.
No, my sister and I would stand at either edge of the pavement. Her at the wall side and me at the gutter side. Me in my posh school uniform, my sister in her civvies. It didn't look like we were together. Sometimes we were in Cathedral Street and sometimes just around the corner where there was a bus station. We would stretch out the invisible thread across the pavement between us and wait for the next unsuspecting pedestrian to walk into it. Generally, the thread crossed the lower abdomen of the, shall we call them hit, because that's what we thought of them as, our hits. And after a bit of pressure, the thread would break, leaving the hit fully aware that he or she had walked into something but wasn't quite sure what, because they couldn't see anything. Maybe it was a spirit presence.
No.
My sister and I would, of course, be giggling hysterically. It was all a bit like something you would see on Candid Camera.
Yes.
Ask your grandparents. Old television. On one occasion, a bus conductress, remember this is the 60s, says Sindy, came from the bus station heading towards the shops. She stopped dead in front of us. She had clearly been watching our antics, so I said, "It's okay, there's nothing here," and she just smiled. I suspected that she enjoyed watching the unsuspecting pedestrians as much as we did, but that is not why I'm asking forgiveness. I asked forgiveness for the little old lady of about 4'6", carrying her little shopping bag, shuffling her tiny size 3 feet along the pavement. My sister and I were poised, the thread stretching across the pavement. The little lady got to the thread, but it didn't snap. The thread was so strong and she was so feeble, it stopped the old lady in her tracks. We could see the indentation the thread was making across her tummy, but it didn't break. She was looking all around, wondering what invisible force was stopping her continuing. Was it an angel or a ghost? Or maybe a divine warning to turn back? My sister and I looked at each other in shock, and I quickly dropped my end of the thread, and the old lady started to move again, but she turned around and went back the other way because some dark force had been steering her. The hand of fate maybe had intervened and said, "Halt, turn again, feeble woman, reconsider your life choices," and she did. I've often wondered if she told her family and friends about the day she was stopped on Cathedral Street by some amazing invisible force of nature. So, I asked forgiveness for this game which I played with my sister, but I'm sure she actually devised it, and it was she that brought that little old lady to a halt. Thanking you all in anticipation. Kind regards, and that's from Sindy. Well, It's a prank that you play in the street. Back in the 60s, there was nothing else to do in 1964.
That's true, yeah.
But obviously, pranks with invisible... I'm just playing the role of Sister Susie here.
Yeah.
Not to be encouraged. But Sister Susie, what do you say here?
Well, Cindy, I feel like, the old lady wasn't hurt, so that was a good thing, but that was lucky because someone could have been hurt. What if they'd have fallen over, broken a leg? You just don't know what's going to happen, do you? And I just think it might have been a bit of fun and a bit silly, and I know that you were just children. However, you seem to pass the buck on to your sister, and I don't think either of you should have done it in the first place, so therefore, I'm not going to forgive you.
A brother from another gutter.
Well, if they've been using this invisible thread and they've been using it to trip people up, then I would be minded not to forgive it, because when I go marching through the streets, and woe betide anyone who gets in my way.
You do walk fast.
I do walk fast, and I wouldn't be happy about a thread tripping me up. But they weren't doing that. They were doing it so that everyone had this spiritual presence. And how fitting that there would be divine intervention on Cathedral Street as well. Spotted that. Very good. And so for that reason, of all of the lines in the galaxy all coming together,
yes,
I'm going to forgive.